The secret to building mental toughness, it lies to me in discipline. That's the secret people are looking for. If you can just show up for whatever you're trying to get better at, good things are going to happen. I think the more you're able to be present, the easier your life is. Do you have the mental toughness to check in for your 16 minutes a day? And most people don't.
How do we build mental toughness? How do we train ourselves to think on a higher level? How do we push ourselves even when we don't want to? Today, you're going to meet somebody who's a testament to making decisions that he knows are difficult, but he does it to push himself, to build himself, and a whole bunch of other people in the process. Today, we are welcoming Mr. Bobby Maximus, an individual who's an extremely high performer, a background in the UFC, working with special ops as a police officer. He is an actor, a trainer, a creator, a father, a husband, and just an all-around high-performing human being that I'm pleased to introduce today. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Bobby Maximus. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
It's awesome to have you on, man. I think the most optimal place to start is, how did you build such a mentally tough mindset? What is it that gets you up in the morning and helps you be resilient?
It's an interesting question because everyone expects some magic secret, some hack, some shortcut, something that's like 3 easy payments of $9.99. You watch these videos of motivational gurus, and they're telling you to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you got to be hard and you got to dunk yourself in cold water and blah, 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 blah. The secret to building mental toughness, it lies to me in discipline. And it's honestly just showing up every single day. I think that's really undervalued in today's society. You know, we talked a little bit off camera. You're a lawyer. How do you get good at being a lawyer? Well, you show up every single day and you do the job. How do you get good at running? You said you're training for a 58 miler. You show up every day and you run. If you do that, you're probably going to get good at running. How did I get good at fighting? How did I get good at wrestling? I just simply showed up every single day. So a big part of my message, and if you look at my tagline, it's every damn day. That's the secret people are looking for. If you can just show up for whatever you're trying to get better at, good things are going to happen.
How have you defined mental toughness, resilience? How do those words work into your life? How are you defining them?
To me, it's that ability just to persevere. It all goes back to it. I'll talk about this a million times. It all goes back to showing up every single day. And so mental toughness to me, it's not screaming. It's not running through a brick wall. It's not doing some overarching task. It's literally just the ability to persevere. Real mental toughness to me is on the day that you don't want to go for a run, you get up and you do it anyway. I don't even care how it gets done. I don't care if it's the best run of your life or the worst run of your life. The fact that you're able to just will yourself to go do the thing, it just lies in simple perseverance. How do you get to be a better father? You show up for your kids every day. How do you get to be a better husband? Show up for your wife every day. It's literally, again, just showing up. And that's real mental toughness. And most people, the reason they don't achieve their goals, the reason they fail, the reason they look in the mirror at night and they're upset at where their life is, it's because they just didn't show up that day or the day before or the day before that.
And as someone who has a background in fighting, I'm curious how your preparation going into the cage, fought in multiple UFC matches, and you have a vast background in martial arts. What is your mindset going into a fight, and how is that translated to your everyday life as a man, father, husband, professional?
So there's a couple of things with mindset, right? First of all, a fight's not won and lost on the actual night of the fight. The fight is won and lost in the 3 months, 6 months, year, 2 years, or decade previous. And so the first thing with mindset is it's easier to have a positive mindset. It's easier to have a winning attitude when you put the proper amount of preparation in. Think back to when you were in university and you had an exam that you studied for. If you didn't study at all, if you didn't show up to the right amount of classes, if you didn't do the requisite reading, how did you feel going into that exam? My guess is probably not good. My guess is you probably threw a couple of prayers up. You hoped that there were a couple of advantageous questions, but you can't feel good about it because you didn't prepare. On the other hand, if you showed up to every class, you got good grades, you handed in all your assignments, and you actually did the out-of-course reading you were supposed to do and put enough hours of study in, you feel pretty good going into that exam. And it's funny when you look before an exam, the people that are visibly anxious, the people that are visibly nervous, the people that are visibly disheveled, you know those are the people that didn't prep, that had to cram, that are worried sick, that they're not going to pass, that they're going to fail, that they're going to lose their credit. The people who had the proper preparation, they go into it confident. They go into it feeling good. So that's number one. And then the second thing I try to focus on, and it's a saying that I got from my sports psychologist, it's be where your feet are. And this is important to a lot of areas of life. When you are being a dad, you should 100% focus on being a dad. You're not on your phone. You're not distracted by work. You're not distracted by the anxieties or the struggles in your life. You're focused on being a dad. Conversely, when you step into, if you're a lawyer, when you step into court, at that moment, you cease to become the person that you are and you become a lawyer. When I was a police officer, when I put my uniform on, I was 100% in the job, but I was able to disconnect. And when I took the uniform off, I could go home and I could just be me. And so another thing that I would focus on with fighting is that when I was in the cage, I was focusing on being in the cage. I was focusing on fighting. I was focusing on performing. I wasn't thinking about all the outside things. And if I could do those two things in tandem, more often than not, I was successful.
That element of presence, being where your feet are, I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's one of the most profound lessons that the human being in general just can take so much value from. How has presence in specific, you gave a couple examples just now, how has presence amplified your performance? How has it made you the type of athlete, father, person that you are today?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there with presence. I think the more you're able to be present, the easier your life is. We all suffer from distractions. We get into the world, and this probably resonates with a lot of people watching this, but you're trying to do 10 things at once and you end up doing 10 really bad things. It's amazing when you dial in, when you get focused, what you're actually capable of. I use the workout for an example, right? You tell me you went to the gym for an hour today. My question is, did you train for an hour? Did you work out for an hour? Did you exercise for an hour? Or did you hang out for an hour? Because all four of those things, they're very, very different. That hour can be extremely valuable if you were actually training, if you were dialed in, if you were locked in, if you were focused, if you were pushing yourself to your limits. That hour could completely 100% done in repetition over a series of days can change your life. On the other hand, if you're the person that's showing up and you're playing on this, kind of walking on a treadmill, you're talking to your friend, you're monitoring the televisions that are above the treadmill, you're taking your time. Well, now my question is, did you actually work out for an hour? And the reality for a lot of people is even if they showed up to the gym for an hour, they might have worked out or they might have trained for 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, and then they wonder why they're not getting anything out of it. And so presence is what leads to excellence. If you can dial into whatever task you're going to do, whether it's being a runner, whether it's being a fighter, whether it's being a lawyer, whether it's being a doctor, whether it's answering emails, whether it's getting work around the house, it unlocks your ability to be productive, and it actually ends up saving a lot of time and frees up a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress so that you can put those resources elsewhere.
What I like about your approach is that on one side, you have this all-in intense mindset, right? But at the same time, you're not all or nothing when it comes to a workout. Like you have the Holy Trinity, right? And the Holy Trinity can be 5 minutes or it can be an hour. and you can get an incredible training session and as a result. But those 5 minutes, say it's a day that you got in the Holy Trinity and it was 5 minutes, those 5 minutes could still be considered training. That's a mindset that I've adopted personally, specifically with the Holy Trinity. And my body has thanked me for it, whether I run a marathon and hit them or whether it's the only 5 minutes that I get to do in the day. And the compounding impact of the Holy Trinity on my training has been, I can't even tell you. As a result, I did 1,018 pull-ups last year and raised over $20,000 for an organization called the Friendship Circle. And that took about 4 hours. And it's something like that, the consistency over time, that has led to incredible impact. How is it that people may not necessarily relate because you're such a high-performing athlete? You have these crazy numbers across the amount of calisthenics reps that you can do, the weight you can move in the gym, the experience you have in the ring, the cage. How do you manage that relatability where people maybe are like, I can't do what Bobby can do? How can I get to that stage?
Well, I think part of it is by telling people the truth. And again, I will go back to this. People think this is complicated. People really believe there's some secret that they don't have. Like, you're sitting there and you're thinking, why don't I have a body like Bobby's? Why aren't I successful like Bobby? Why didn't I fight in the UFC? Why didn't I become the best lawyer in whatever city I'm in or whatever state I'm in or whatever country I'm in? Why did my marriage fall apart? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And you're thinking there's some complicated secret, again, that you're not aware of. But the reality is you just didn't show up every single day. And that's the real secret. And people are unwilling to admit that, because what that takes is a level of what I call ruthless self-assessment, where you have to look in the mirror and blame yourself. It's far easier to blame external sources. So let's talk about the Trinity, because you brought it up. And we're going to tie in being present. And I've got my calculator here just so we know everything's on a level. So we talked about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you can get in. I can do 50 pull-ups, 50 push-ups, and 50 dips when I'm dialed in 14 minutes. 14 minutes a day might not seem like a lot to you, but if it's done the right way, if it's done with the right intensity, if you're all in and you're locked in and you actually just show up every day, it starts to add up. You brought up compounding interest. So if you were to do 14 minutes a day, that's all I'm going to ask you to dedicate. And you were to get 50 reps of pull-ups. If you were to do that 365 days a year, that's 18,250 pull-ups. Plus 18,250 dips, plus 18,250 push-ups. But Bobby, I can't do a pull-up. How about squats? But Bobby, I can't do dips. I don't have a dip bar in my house. How about sit-ups? How about lunges? How about a burpee? How about a leg raise or a flutter kick? Like, my point is, if you just showed up for those 14 minutes a day and you were able to accumulate that kind of rep total, where would you be at the end of the year? It'd be incredible. The problem is people don't want to believe it's that simple, because then the onus shifts to them. The blame falls on them and they're just unwilling to do it. It's far easier to say, well, I don't have the magic program. I don't have TRT. I'm not on PEDs. I don't have a special superfood. I can't afford this. I don't have time. You understand what I'm saying? It really becomes an issue of looking within yourself. And if you can show up and dial in across multiple facets of your life, it's incredible how successful you can be. So there's another thing that I talk about. Have you ever heard of the rule of 100?
I'm curious the context you're using it in.
If you spend 100 hours doing something, you'll be better than 95% of the people on the planet. Play piano. Spend 100 dedicated hours of practice, and you'll be better than 95% of people on the planet. So let's look at what 100 breaks down to. 100 hours. And remind me, there's 60 minutes in an hour, correct?
Yeah.
So we have 6,000 minutes. Divided by 365, 16.4 minutes a day. So you're going to be better than 95% of people on the planet. All you have to invest is 16.4 minutes a day. It's incredible when you think of that. The kicker is that 16 minutes has to be a dedicated 16 minutes. You're not playing video games. You're not checking your email. You're not on your phone. You're not thinking about life's problems. You are zoned in. And so now, if we're looking at the 95% rule, if you dedicated 100 hours a year to your marriage, 100 hours a year to parenting, 100 hours a year to piano, 100 hours a year of working out, 100 hours a year, you'd be a remarkable human being in all aspects of your life. It really is that simple. The question is, do you have the mental toughness to check in for your 16 minutes a day? And most people don't.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen, and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people, and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the episode.
I love how you brought it back to the mental toughness aspect, because something that I've come to learn is that mental toughness is a practice. Mental toughness is a practice that consists of self-love, self-belief, self-talk, gratitude, grit, perseverance, to your point, fortitude, all of these different elements that make it up and create this mindset of inevitability, where the thing that you're after will eventually happen as long as you're willing to put in the work, show up, to your point. And you've had this career of not only being a high performer, but being surrounded by high performers. I'm curious, in your experience, what are some of the common themes, threads, or traits, attributes, and qualities that you've come across in working with, whether it be special forces, police officers, UFC fighters, yourself, in those environments? What are some of the common themes that you've recognized and have impacted you?
Yeah, so the first one, and I'm being repetitive, but it's true. The first one is the ability to show up every day. Like, there's been a lot of coverage on the Olympics about Michael Phelps. And I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know how much Michael Phelps was swimming when he was winning his Olympic medals? Do you know the answer to that?
No, I don't. I can imagine it was quite a lot.
1,300 hours a year. So let's divide that by 52 weeks. 25 hours a week. Dude is working 9 to 3 in a pool Monday to Friday. While you're working, while you're shuffling papers, while you're sitting at your desk, where you're writing briefs, when you're doing whatever you do, he's in a pool. People will come up with these excuses for Michael Phelps. Well, he has webbed toes. He has longer arms than an average human being. He has double jointed shoulders. He's genetically a good swimmer. Blah, 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 blah. I hear, wow, you spent 9 to 3 Monday to Friday in a pool every day of your life? Of course you're the best swimmer in the world. Then we look at LeBron James. How many hours do you think he spends a year on a basketball court? It's more than you would think. Tom Brady. How many hours would he spend throwing footballs or watching film? Tiger Woods, the story on him is he would wake up in the morning. His dad would yank him out of bed. Actually, he wouldn't wake up. His dad would yank him out of bed, drag him to the garage, and he would just hit golf balls all day. Okay, you're going to get good. Do you remember a guy named Al McInnes, hockey player, Canadian born, had one of the best slap shots in NHL history? In the summer, when he was off, he would just hit pucks against a barn door again and again and again and again and again and again and again. He would just take hundreds and thousands of slap shots. A PGA Tour guy, how many golf balls do you think they hit in a year? 100,000, 200,000? A professional shooter, how many rounds do they fire off in a year? 100,000, 200,000? The point is, one of the themes with all these high performers is they do the thing again and again and again and again. That's number one. Number two, they actually really care about what they do. They put attention into their craft. They don't cut corners. They're not the people who say it's good enough. In fact, nothing is ever good enough. They're always looking to improve, and they will do anything for that last 1%, 2%, and it really starts to add up. And so they're willing to sleep an extra 15 minutes a night. They're willing to pay a little bit more attention to the nutrition. They're willing to pay a little bit extra for organic food. They're willing to skip a Friday night out on the town because they know it will make them better. You can do those two things in concert. And this is all the high-performing people I've been around. You end up unlocking the keys to greatness. And so it's showing up every day and doing a thing and doing the thing more and more and more. And then at the same time, it's willing to sacrifice a few meaningless nights out. It's willing to sacrifice a few nights of fun or things that don't really matter in pursuit of your goal.
Is that how you've cultivated discipline? By understanding what you have to give up?
Well, it's understanding what you have to give up, but it's also when you see the rewards of it. So you saw me do something today. What am I doing right now? Drinking a shake. Get my protein in because I need to get that in. I need to have nutrition. Now, this isn't always the easiest thing to do. It would have been easier just to sit down and do this podcast. It would have been far easier to not have to plan. It would have been far easier to just let it slide. But when you start to see the rewards of this type of behavior stacked across multiple areas, then discipline becomes easy because you start to see the reward. And so let's talk about working out. If you take someone that's off the couch, if you take someone that's sedentary and they go work out today, and I'm going to ask you some questions. I want honest answers. If you go work out today, are you going to look better tomorrow? If you go run sprints today, are you really going to wake up faster tomorrow? If you go eat a healthy meal, is your stomach really going to change tomorrow? And the answer is no, 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 no. But if you stack those things up for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, then there will be an incredible change. If you can make it through that, if you can have a little bit of faith at the start of your journey and you start to see the fruits of your labors, if you start to see the reward, discipline becomes a lot easier. But that's the hardest thing in the world to do because we are conditioned as a society to want quick fixes and immediate results. We're not interested in what's going to happen 6 months down the road. We want that feeling now. And so if you could go work out right now and you could instantly look like Thor tomorrow, well, you'd work out all the time. If you could go invest some time in at work and you could instantly get a bigger paycheck tomorrow, it would be easier to keep investing time. But you have to make it through that initial little bit till the gains start to accumulate and you start to get that compound interest. And once you see the success from it, then it's a lot easier to show up.
That ability to delay gratification. And, you talked about sacrifice. And when I think about building discipline, I think about a couple of things. But before I say them, I'm curious, how have you built discipline? Say someone's not starting from square zero. Say someone is a bit more of an advanced athlete or has the ability. They're kind of in that space between like, I've made the commitment, I'm 3 to 6 months into my transformation, I want to level up, but I don't have that discipline to stop binge eating. I know I need to get my protein in, but like I haven't committed to stop eating the extra dessert, whatever it is, or I'm just using nutrition as easy examples, but say it's also with performance or any other element in their life. How have you tapped into that level between being an amateur fighter to a professional fighter, being an amateur athlete to a professional athlete? How have you made that transition from good to great?
I'm going to answer this a couple of different ways, if you bear with me. The first thing is I put myself in a position where discipline has to happen, where discipline comes easy, where I have no real choice. People ask me how I'm so dedicated. I don't get you. How can you just show up every single day? It's easy when you have to get photographed with your shirt off. It's easy when you're going to be on the cover of Men's Health, and it's going to be embarrassing if you don't look good. It's easy if you're going to get your ass kicked on pay-per-view in front of 3 million people. It's easy when the outcome of losing is being embarrassed in front of your girlfriend, in front of your wife, in front of your friends, in front of your family. There's a natural drive in there. So let me word this a different way. We have a problem with obesity in America. We have a problem with obesity in Canada. We have a problem with fitness in North America. How fit do you think the country would be if people's income was tied to their level of fitness? You want to give me an answer on that? Like if you were more fit, you had to pay less taxes. How many people do you think would have a problem with fitness then?
I don't know if
Zero.
the same people
You understand
have
what I mean?
the same
Because there's like a
yeah.
real consequence, there's a real thing. So I just want to say I am empathetic to the person out there who works a desk job, whose wife doesn't necessarily care whether they have a six pack or not, whose relationship with their kids isn't necessarily impacted. Because how do you manufacture discipline? Like on the days that I don't want to train, the days that I don't want to do anything, the days that I don't want to get out of bed, and I have those days. Well, I kind of have no choice because it's my job. Like, this is how I pay. Like, I look around my house right now. It's how I pay my mortgage. So the question is, how do you relay that, to answer your question, to a normal person? And my thing is, there's a couple of ways. One, you have to remember your why. So every day, sit down for 5 minutes and do some self-reflection on the day that you don't want to go to the gym, on the day that you don't want to show up to work, the day that you don't want to do the thing. Take 5 minutes and do some reflection, do some meditation, and remember your why. And oftentimes by just remembering your why, that's enough to get you in the right direction. The number 2 thing to do is I call it buying your ticket. So you're doing this 58-mile race, correct? When is it?
September 7th.
Did you pay your entry fee yet?
Yeah.
You're locked in. You bought your ticket. If you could just put some money down, you're a lot more likely to show up for the thing. You see this with events. If I want to have a free event and I give away free tickets and I give 100 free tickets away, half the people won't show up because it was free. There's no value there. If you just charge a nominal fee for it, $9.99, all 100 people will show up because they bought the ticket and they don't want to lose the money, even though it's really only $9 and they could totally do without $9. If they have to buy it, they'll work harder for it. I see it in personal training. If I train you for free, there's no value attached to it. You'll cut corners. You won't show up. You'll abuse my time. You won't follow through and you're into the commitment. On the other hand, if you pay me $2,000 a month, oh, you're showing up. You are all in. You are 100% committed because there's a natural, there's a gun to your head, so to speak. And so 1, remember your why. And then 2, put yourself in a position where you have to do the thing, where you bought the ticket. Just announce. You want to know what really works for people? Societal pressure. Announce to your friends that you're going to run this race. Just tell them. And the fact that you tell them or that you voice that, you're 90% more likely to achieve your goal. Because if you don't, guess what you have to deal with at the office? Why did you quit? Why didn't you run? What happened to that run you were going to do? And now you're put in a negative social situation. And sometimes just telling people, just vocalizing your goal is enough to hold your feet to the fire.
It's so funny you use those examples because I've been planning this run for a while. It's been in the back of my mind. I've done the Goggins Challenge. I did a couple other ones. And like this run in particular, I wanted to do 50 plus miles straight for a while just because it's that magic number, right? Like after you do the marathon or whatever, like for ultra running, right? And when I bought this ticket, it was this initially what I was going to do was just run 50 miles and like just go in any kind of direction or run 25 one way or 10, like whatever. And I was going to go at my pace, but I needed to formalize it and make that commitment in a more finite way that helped me understand this is a real goddamn thing. And every single day I negotiated because it's a 50-mile race and I'm adding 8 miles, 2 before, 6 after. And like, it's the extra 8 is scaring the shit out of me. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, why did I have to open my mouth? Why did I have to say I'm going to do those extra 8 miles? And it has haunted me. It's haunted me, man. Like, it has legitimately been like, I'm not afraid of 50. I'm afraid of 52. I'm afraid of 54. I'm afraid of 58. And like, it's also been this incredible driver where like, when I run a marathon and then the next day I have to get up and run for another hour or 2, it's like, I know that this sucks and I don't want to do this, but it's incredible how my mind and my body have responded. But the negotiation that happens internally has just been horrible.
But here's the deal. You can't lose that negotiation because guess what happens if you don't do this? You got to post about it on social. You got to go on your podcast and say you quit. You got to not talk about it. And then you get bombarded by DMs asking people what happened to that race. Like there's a real pressure there. So you have to show up and you have to do the work and you have to represent. And so that's why I tell people just buy your ticket.
And it's great advice. I'll say like the other thing is, I would not feel good about me. I would just not be able to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you're not the person that you say you are. And I know that you're a man of action. You're someone who follows through on their word. You're a prime example of commitment, dedication, but also improvement. What are some of the strategies that you've used to improve your skill set? We understand the concepts of showing up. We understand the concepts of discipline and resilience. How can people strategically improve their specific skill sets, whether it be as an actor, whether it be as an athlete, as a father, as a husband? What are some things that people can do to improve their performance?
I think the number one thing is never being too cool, never being too old, because it's certainly an age thing, never being too good to learn. The more you can learn, the more you can adapt, the more you can evolve, the more you can change, the better you're going to be. So the default human response is to look at somebody that has a big podcast and say, they got lucky. Oh, they had this and I didn't. They had this and I didn't. No, instead, watch what they do. Learn from them. Copy what they do. Like just get some inspiration somehow. So if you can just keep focusing on learning, you'll be better across the board. But men are the worst for this. I always say that men are the worst clients because every guy knows how to train already. He knows how to fight. He knows how to fix stuff around his house. Like there's always, actually, do you practice law right now?
To a degree, I'm an associate general. Okay, I'm in-house.
Okay. What type of law did you do or do you do?
Right now, in-house. Before, I was a criminal prosecutor.
Okay. So, but when you say in-house, so you're doing business type stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So as a lawyer, correct me if I'm wrong. I actually had a really good friend who was an incredible attorney. And I asked him once if he ever lost a case. And he said, no, my clients lost cases by not listening to me. And I was like, that's a really interesting way to look at things. But he's kind of not wrong because you're going to advise your client on the best thing to do. But can you force them to listen? The answer is maybe, maybe not, probably not. Like you're there to give advice, true or false?
Yes.
But if they don't listen, that's not your fault. And there are people who don't listen to their lawyer. And you know where they end up? Jail. You know where they end up? On the wrong side of a civil litigation. True or false?
True for the most part, plus minus malpractice.
My point is that you know better than your lawyer. Then why did you hire a lawyer in the first place? You know better than your doctor. And why did you hire a doctor in the first place? Why did you go see the doctor in the first place? Why do you think you know better than the guy that went to med school for 10 years or the guy who's been putting in 2,000 billable hours as a lawyer for the last 10 years? You understand what I'm getting at? It's when you think you know better and you refuse to learn and you refuse to listen to people. If you would just do that and open your mind a little bit, you'd be remarkably better at whatever you could do. Running, you're a runner. Look up what other people are doing. You know who Ryan Hall is? He's the best American marathon runner of all time. If you had 30 minutes to sit down with him, do you think that would be valuable or not valuable? It'd probably be extremely valuable, but you know what you're going to do? I know how to run. I run every day. I'm a great runner. Okay, you're better than Ryan Hall, but you don't need anybody's help. The real problem for people, especially men. So my thing is just be willing to read a little bit. Just be willing to learn a little bit. Just be willing to get together with the best person that you have access to. Train with people better than you. You want to be good at something? You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. People either drag you up or drag you down. So why not go work with the best people possible? And I get that you're the worst guy in the room, but if you're around those people, you will get better and better and better. But instead, your fragile little ego can't handle that. You'd rather be the big fish in the small pond, so you never grow. So put yourself in a room where you're not the best person and you're forced to level up. Surround yourself with people that are excellent in their individual craft because it will force you to get better. These are the things that people don't do. And if they did, they'd be a lot better.
Bobby, I've had an awesome time here today. There's a question that I pose to all my guests that I want to pose to you. If the future version of yourself from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
Just keep going. That's it. Like, it's literally that simple. And to anyone that's out here listening, I get it. It's hard. You want to quit. It feels like you're not going to get your reward. It feels like the man's out to get you. It feels like the deck's stacked against you. A lot of people are not successful simply because they quit. And the people that you look up to, the people that are successful, they just kept going. They just kept trying, and eventually good things will happen. And so that's the advice I would give myself. No matter what, just keep going. Just one step at a time.
There is one more question I actually want to ask you, just because that answer triggered something else. When it comes to purpose, how have you built purpose into your life, and how would you offer someone else to who may not have that same sense of purpose that you have? How would you offer them to go figure it out and navigate it?
I would say find what you love and do it. There was a time when I was in high school and I was wondering what I was going to be when I was going to grow up. And it was all traditional answers: a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, work for the railway. That's what my dad did. My mom was a nurse. Like, just standard jobs. But none of them really spoke to me. None of them I was passionate about. And I got into fitness and I really started working out. And there was something about it that I absolutely loved. But in 1996, 1997, there was no way to turn fitness into a career. There was no way to turn fitness into a job. Like, how did you do it? There was no social media. What am I going to do? Like, train people one-on-one in a gym, make like $15 an hour? That's not a career. I can't do that. So I shelved that dream. Tried teaching for a minute. Tried policing for a minute. But I was bored. I was unfulfilled. I was unhappy. And finally, I said, I'm going to take a chance on this. I'm going to chase this fitness thing down. And if it doesn't work out for me, I can always go back to being a cop. I can always go back to being a teacher. Now, I do want to say this. No offense is meant to anybody. There are people who love policing. There are people who love teaching. And if that's you, congratulations. Stick with that thing and never let go. But it wasn't that for me. Fitness was my passion. So now I'm sitting here, and when you want to talk about having purpose, I turned my passion into a paying career. So if you really want to have purpose, figure out what the 4-year-old Jonathan wanted to do. Figure out what the 5-year-old Ricky or Dave or Eric wanted to do. What was your dream when you were 7? And chase that thing down and make it happen. And if you can turn your passion into your day-to-day life, it's very easy to wake up and have purpose because you have an innate love of it.
Incredible. Please let the audience know where they can keep up with your journey.
So you can get a hold of me. It's actually really easy. Just at Bobby Maximus. That's simple. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, the internet. Shout it into the air. Like, that's the beauty of today's day and age. And I talked about, I lived in an era where there was no social media, where you had to call people on a rotary telephone, right? If you just punch Bobby Maximus into anything, you can find me. It's not hard.
It's been awesome connecting. Thank you so much for the time. I also left out that you're a writer. Please go check out Bobby's work as well in men's health. And until the next one, man, thank you for this.